In the spring of 1922, a small notice ran in the back of a trade publication called Forging and Heat Treating. It announced the incorporation of a new company, Ridge Tool Machinery Company, capitalized at $50,000, filed in Elyria, Ohio. Behind that notice were 3 men, 2 of their wives, and a pipe wrench that would go on to define an entire American trade. 100 years on, that pipe wrench is still on every commercial plumber's belt in the country. It is still painted red. It is still stamped with the same 4 letters that ran in the incorporation notice. The company behind it is now 2 companies. One of them sits in a red brick factory in Elyria, Ohio, employing a few hundred people to make pipe wrenches, threading machines, and drain augers the same way they were made before the Second World War. The other operates out of a Hong Kong office tower, ships orange cordless drills from factories in Vietnam and China, and pays a licensing fee to use the same 4 letters. Both are called rigid. Most of the tradesmen who buy them cannot tell which one made what. The reason goes back to a boardroom conversation in 1966 and a licensing agreement signed in 2003. This is the fascinating story of Ridge Tool, the Elyria pipe wrench company that got split in half without most of its customers ever noticing. Nobody was paying much attention to Center Ridge Road in 1917. It was a stretch of country lane running through North Ridgeville, Ohio, a farming town of a few thousand people about 25 miles west of Cleveland. On the southeast corner of Center Ridge and Avon Belden Road sat an old machine shop called the Kaiser Machine Works. That year, a group of 5 men bought the building. They incorporated the Schwartz Van Wormer Company with $25,000 in capital. Their timing was good. The United States was about to enter the First World War, and the government needed small machine shops to make gun parts, artillery shell tooling, and components for what the newspapers of the time still called aeroplanes. For 3 years, the Schwartz Van Wormer plant hummed. By 1920, the local Chronicle Telegram called it one of Elyria's largest industrial plants, even though it sat inside North Ridgeville's town limits. When the war ended, wartime contracts dried up. The shop pivoted to automobile parts, molds for rubber, and custom machinery. It was not enough. By the fall of 1921, the founders were looking for a buyer. The buyer came in the form of an engineer named William Thuys. Thuys had been designing pipe wrenches, not the wrench itself, which had been around since Daniel Stilson patented the sliding jaw design in 1869, but a heavier, more forgiving version. Where the Stilson wrench slipped on rusted or painted pipe, Thuys' design bit down harder as the operator applied force. The harder the pull, the tighter the jaw. The teeth held. The handle did not flex. Thuys did not have the money to buy a plant on his own. He brought in his wife Barbara as a principal shareholder. He brought in a businessman named Carl Ingwer and Ingwer's wife Jenny, and he brought in a 5th investor named Arthur Smith. In April of 1922, the 5 of them incorporated the Ridge Tool Machinery Company. The paperwork was filed in Elyria, the Lorain County seat, but the plant they had bought sat 12 miles east on that stretch of Center Ridge Road in North Ridgeville. The company took its name from the neighborhood. Carl Ingwer became its first president. By early 1923, the first Thuys pipe wrenches were coming off the line. the founders needed a brand name. They chose one that would tell the buyer exactly what the tool was. Rigid. Longtime residents of North Ridgeville said the name was chosen to signal strength. What the founders did not know was that they had just built the tool that would define American plumbing for the next 100 years. The rigid pipe wrench did what Thewers designed it to do. It bit, it held, it did not slip on threaded pipe, and it did not warp under load. Within 2 years of the first production run, Ridge Tool was shipping wrenches to distributors as far away as Canada, Italy, Sweden, England, and Mexico. In May of 1926, the founders simplified the corporate name to Ridge Tool. In 1927, the American exporter ran a full-page advertisement for the rigid wrench, the rigid pipe cutter, and a post-mounted rigid pipe vise. 2 years later, William Thewes was granted patent number 1,727,623, formalizing the wrench design that had already spread through the plumbing trades. The North Ridgeville plant ran 7 days a week. In the summer, according to residents who remembered it, the building hummed audibly from Center Ridge Road. A 2-cylinder diesel engine powered the entire operation. At noon, when the machines stopped for lunch, the town went suddenly quiet. 2 10,000-gallon oil tanks sat behind the plant, feeding the engines. When the plant expanded in the late 1920s, Ridge Tool added a second building for a 5-cylinder engine, generating additional electricity for the production line. Then came the Depression. The stock market crashed in 1929. By 1932, most of America's small manufacturers were closing or cutting to skeleton crews. Ridge Tool slowed, but it did not close. According to former workers, the plant kept running through the worst of the Depression, offering shifts to men in North Ridgeville who could not find work anywhere else. That same year, the town formed its first volunteer fire department, partly to protect the plant, which had become the economic center of the community. By 1937, Ridge Tool was expanding again. Commercial plumbing was growing, and every new city water system, every hospital, every school building needed men with rigid wrenches on their belts. By the end of the 1930s, rigid had become the default. When a plumber said he needed to grab a wrench, he meant a Ridge Tool wrench. When an apprentice was told to fetch a 14-inch pipe wrench, he was expected to bring back a red-handled rigid. Competitors existed. Other manufacturers still made the traditional Stilson pattern wrench, but the rigid had taken over the trade. Its design was simply better suited to the hard-use environment of commercial pipe fitting, and its guarantee that a broken wrench would be replaced free for the life of the original buyer was a promise no other maker was willing to match. By 1943, the North Ridgeville plant had run out of room. Ridge Tool needed to expand. The war economy was pulling every skilled machinist within 100 miles into defense work, and a building had just opened up in Elyria. The building sat on Clark Street. It had been through 3 previous lives. Built in 1905 by the Garford Motor Truck Company, it had made trucks and later automobiles. In 1913, Willis Overland bought it and used it to manufacture automobile engines. It sat empty from 1932 to 1936, then was purchased in 1939 by the Bender brothers, who used it to build travel trailers and school bus bodies. When the government began rationing steel for the war effort in 1941, the Bender operation folded. In 1943, Ridge Tool bought the vacant plant and moved most of its production 12 miles east from North Ridgeville to Elyria. The Elyria plant would remain Ridge Tool's headquarters for the next 8 decades. The war years were good to Ridge Tool. Military bases needed plumbing. Shipyards needed pipe threading. The rigid wrench went into every naval yard, every army base, every industrial facility retooled for war production. When the war ended, Ridge Tool was positioned exactly right for the post-war building boom. Between 1948 and 1959, the company launched a series of machines that transformed its business from a wrench maker into an industrial powerhouse. The Model 400 power drive, introduced in 1948, took the labor out of hand threading pipe. The Model 500 threading machine, launched in 1950, could cut, ream, and thread pipe faster than any tool that had come before it. The Model 535, introduced in 1957, and the Model 300, introduced in 1959, became standard equipment on American commercial plumbing job sites. Ridge Tool was no longer just a wrench company. It was making the machines that professional plumbers depended on for their livelihoods. In 1962, Ridge Tool opened its first overseas factory in Belgium, exporting the same tools to European contractors rebuilding after the war. By the mid-1960s, several hundred people worked inside the Elyria plant. Ridgid had become the professional plumbing brand, in the same way that Snap-on had become the professional mechanic brand. The company was privately held, family-run, and profitable. Carl Ingwer, the first president, had passed away, but the founding families were still involved. By 1965, Ridge Tool had a target on its back. Every diversified American conglomerate looking for a mid-sized industrial acquisition kept coming back to the same profile. Privately held, family-run, profitable, brand defensible, plumbing trade lock-in. Ridge Tool fit every category. It was only a matter of time before someone made an offer. The offer came in 1966 from Emerson Electric of St. Louis. Emerson was one of the largest diversified industrial holding companies in America. It bought companies. It left them mostly alone. It reported the earnings. The remaining shareholders of Ridge Tool agreed to sell. Ridge Tool became a wholly owned subsidiary of Emerson Electric, and for a while, nothing visible changed. For the first 2 decades under Emerson, the Elyria plant kept running the way it had always run. Ridge Tool still made the wrenches. Ridge Tool still made the threading machines. The catalogue was still red. The men in the plant still stamped the same 4 letters on the same forged steel jaws. Emerson Electric was in the business of buying industrial companies and leaving them alone. And Ridge Tool was one of its quieter, more profitable holdings. What Emerson did do, though, was leverage its other factories for a different kind of customer. By the 1950s, Emerson had become one of the primary contract manufacturers for Sears Roebuck's Craftsman line of stationary power tools. Table saws, band saws, drill presses, jointers, planers. If it stood on 4 legs and ran on a 220 outlet, and it wore the Craftsman name, chances were Emerson had built it in one of its Ohio or Missouri plants. Ridge Tool itself was not directly involved. Ridge Tool made pipe tools. Craftsman power tools were made elsewhere in the Emerson family. But this arrangement mattered because It set up the decision that would eventually split the Rigid brand in two. For 4 decades, Emerson had built its industrial identity around being the invisible manufacturer behind other people's names. That was fine as long as Sears kept ordering. Then, in the 1990s, Sears began doing what most American retailers began doing. It went looking for cheaper suppliers overseas. By the late 1990s, Sears had shifted much of its Craftsman stationary power tool business away from Emerson and toward manufacturers in Taiwan and mainland China. Emerson was left with idle factory capacity and no buyer. Executives in St. Louis went looking for a new retail partner. They found one in Atlanta. The Home Depot had been expanding at a ferocious pace through the 1980s and 90s, and its stores needed a professional-grade power tool line that could sit next to DeWalt and Milwaukee without embarrassment. Emerson had the factories, Home Depot had the shelf space. The two companies cut a deal. The tools Emerson had been making for Sears would now be sold at Home Depot, and they would be sold under the Rigid brand name. Because Emerson owned Ridge Tool, and Ridge Tool owned the Rigid trademark, the label was the one thing Emerson did not have to negotiate for. The pipe wrench company in Elyria was about to become the retail name on a table saw. But the deal Emerson had struck with Home Depot had a ceiling, and the ceiling was coming into view fast. Making a table saw and making a cordless drill are two different problems. Emerson's factories were built for stationary machinery, not battery-powered handheld tools. And by the early 2000s, the cordless power tool market had become the fastest-growing category in American hardware retail. Home Depot wanted rigid cordless drills, impact drivers, circular saws, and reciprocating saws to sit on the shelf alongside the rigid table saws and shop vacuums. Emerson could not build those tools, not at the scale Home Depot wanted, and not at the price point. In June of 2003, Emerson made an announcement out of St. Louis. The company had entered into a marketing agreement with a Hong Kong firm called Tektronix Industries. Under the agreement, a Tektronix subsidiary called One World Technologies would supply Rigid-branded benchtop and stationary woodworking power tools for Home Depot. 2 months later, in August, Tektronix Industries made its own announcement out of Hong Kong. It was launching a comprehensive new line of 35 Rigid-branded, handheld corded, cordless, benchtop and stationary power tools for professional contractors, builders and woodworkers, sold exclusively through the Home Depot. That August announcement was the moment the Rigid brand quietly became 2 brands. The plumbing tools, the pipe wrenches, the threading machines, the drain cleaners, and the shop vacuums remained, with Ridge Tool in Elyria, wholly owned by Emerson Electric. The power tools, the orange and grey cordless drills, the impact drivers, the miter saws, and the sanders moved to Tektronix Industries in Hong Kong. The tools would be manufactured in factories in Guangdong Province and later in Vietnam. The design work would happen in a Tektronix office park in Anderson, South Carolina, not in Elyria. The customer support phone line was a different number than the one plumbers had been calling for decades. The confusion was immediate and it never really cleared up. A tradesman walking into a Home Depot in 2005 could pick up a red rigid pipe wrench made in Elyria by Emerson and an orange rigid cordless drill made in Guangdong by Tektronix and pay for both at the same register. They wore the same logo. They shared a shelf. Their warranty programs were run by different companies. Their customer service numbers routed to different states. And the retail employees who sold them, in most cases, did not know which was which. The two rigids coexisted quietly for a decade and a half. Then, in January of 2020, the split turned adversarial. Ridge Tool filed a lawsuit in federal court in Delaware against Milwaukee Tool over cordless power tool battery patents. Milwaukee was owned by Tektronix Industries, the same corporate parent that had been licensed to make the rigid power tools was now being sued by the original Rigid Pipe Wrench Company. Two subsidiaries of the same broader family, both selling under names that had once meant one specific thing, were fighting each other in federal court over intellectual property that had nothing to do with pipe wrenches. The red brick plant on Clark Street in Elyria is still standing. 715,000 square feet. Somewhere between 200 and 500 people still work inside it, forging pipe wrenches, assembling threading machines, calibrating drain cameras. Ridge Tool celebrated its 100th anniversary in 2023 with an event at the plant. Former workers came back. Some had spent 40 years on the line. Some had watched 3 generations of their own families put on the same red and grey uniform. The orange cordless drills at Home Depot still sell in high volume. They are not made by anyone in Elyria. They are not designed by anyone in Elyria. The engineers who work on them have never set foot on Clark Street. And yet the tradesmen who use them, plumbers and pipe fitters and carpenters, still refer to any pipe wrench made by any manufacturer as a rigid, not because they know the corporate structure, not because they care which Emerson subsidiary owns which trademark. The word entered the language somewhere between 1923 and 1966, and the language did not follow the corporate paperwork. In a red brick plant on Clark Street, in Elyria, in a building that was making Garford trucks in 1905 and pipe wrenches by 1943, a few hundred people still stamp 4 letters into forged steel. The wrench they make is the reason the word survived.